police state, and it's basically saying that America is now no different from Iraq or Afghanistan, where the so-called, quote, insurgents are going to be targeted by these predator drones, which are going to be armed with weapons as well as spy capabilities. So, yeah, that was in the Associated Press this morning, that they're now getting ready to introduce predator drones inside the United States for law enforcement, which shows yet another advancement of this police state that's strangling us. Thanks for the call, Mark. We're going to go to Colby in New Hampshire. Colby, you're on the air.
Hey, Paul. This is Colby. I was opening up my inbox this morning, and I got a message from Blizzard, the creators of the World of Warcraft series. And apparently they're integrating a Real ID security system into the game. And I thought this was an interesting development because as of 2008, there was 11.5 million people playing that game. And, that's kind of a frightening personal security breach, in my opinion, going in that direction.
Yeah, it's being reported by the website ripteng.com, World of Warcraft Real ID incoming, and the article says if you're one of the 11.5 million World of Warcraft players, you should be excited to learn that Blizzard is implementing a new friends list management system dubbed Real ID, which claims to increase the level of interaction players have with each other. Now, do you know anything about exactly what users will be required to do as part of this Real ID system? Is it a kind of individual identification system?
It certainly seems like that. I haven't seen specific biometrics or anything like that, but it seems like it's a further way to kind of tie in the Internet 2.0 theory of identifying everyone individually and ensuring that whatever they've done is tracked through their personal ID.
Right, yeah. It's kind of like how the Chinese wanted to individually identify bloggers by each giving them an ID number which they would be required to obtain before they could write anything on the internet. And it's part of this increasing move towards identification of individuals, taking away the anonymous aspect of the internet, which many people exercise as a tool for their free speech. So, yeah, we'll definitely keep track of this, and we'll be posting it on the website later today. That's a very interesting story. We go to our next caller now, and it's Ronnie in Texas. Ronnie, what's on your mind today?
Thank you, sir. I just wanted to share with you that in Chicago, while attending a pre-Ralph Nader Green party gathering, when I was back then an open Steve Forbes tax reform enthusiast, I was informed that the Greens were actually the front for the communists and the labor unions who were running this leftist-leaning third-party movement. They were hijacking the Greens. You know, the environmental movement was just completely hijacked by these communists. And then, while trying to break through back here in Texas into the Libertarian Party, I discovered the same criminal control of the Texas Libertarian Party, refusing to talk. This is the Libertarian Party, and they refuse to talk about the war on pot smokers, medicinal marijuana, supporting our troops with freedom for farmers. You know, the medicinal marijuana really helps traumatic brain injured people, and I can personally give you a testimonial on that. And that's some of this information I was trying to share and run as a candidate and everything, and influence their leaning, but it's completely controlled. The third-party movement here in Texas is just completely controlled by either the out-and-out communists and the Greens or the so-called libertarians, and the guy who ran the show here now in Travis County is now the national leader of the Libertarian Party. So they're just completely stained with criminality and refusal to face real problems and real solutions. That is, freedom for farmers is a great solution to a whole lot of problems. Family farms, conserving topsoil to help feed our future, getting out of wars, these idiotic wars. If we just come to grips with freedom for farmers, around the world, we make a whole lot of progress.
Yeah, well, the point you raise about the Greens actually now being quite blasé, the communists, that was actually admitted by the Greenpeace founder, Patrick Moore. who resigned from Greenpeace partly in protest that the people who had now taken over the organisation were not really interested in environmental protection. They were more interested in advancing this communist feudalist agenda, which, as we have exposed vehemently over the past several years, is exclusively centred around eviscerating the middle class, imposing this post-industrial revolution and turning us back into serfs. So definitely, I mean, the modern environmentalist movement is nothing more than a watermelon. It's green on the outside, it's red on the inside, and these kind of control freaks will dress themselves in any political ideology that suits them at their present time to further their brutal and tyrannical agenda, and that's what we've seen with the Greens advancing this current green fascism. But thanks for your call, Ronnie. We're going to go to John in Ohio. John, what's on your mind today?
Yes, I've supported Alex Jones, though I'm on the left, and against any claims that he was for violence and the rest of it. But I find at this point that what I see as a fascist element from the John Birch Society, this kind of red baiting, because I'm very familiar back in the 60s with the Bill Ayers faction of SDS. It was rabidly anti-communist. The communist faction within SDS, Progressive Labor Party, had the position that Ayers and these others were totally agent provocateurs, that they were trying to discredit the anti-war movement. The Progressive Labor Party was the communist faction within SDS. It agreed with you that this deindustrialization was really a front for this fake liberals within the movement. I found out that the John Birch Society, which is very influential with Alex Jones, specialized in these kinds of outrageous fabrications of so-called FBI agents that would scaremonger about the Russians and the Chinese and the Cubans invading the United States. Just fantastical nightmare type of fabrications that were actually run by Western Goals, which was connected with the John Birch Society and collaborated with police squads to frame up people around the country. Even J. Edgar Hoover, who was a specialist in this kind of smear job with his COINTELPRO, said these guys were absolutely discrediting his ability to discredit people because they were so far off the edge of the world. For you to quote this so-called FBI agent saying that Russia and China and Cuba were going to invade the country, even though there was a Russia-China split, I think really destroys your credibility and places you in the totally discredited corner of the John Birch Society, which I find too often influences Alex Jones, who I've supported, even though I disagree with his positions on eliminating programs.
Okay. Thanks for the call. Yeah, I'll respond. Basically, what Grathwohl was saying in that clip was that he asked Bill Ayers and the Weather Underground what would replace the collapse of the American government if a vacuum was to exist. And he basically said that the Weather Underground didn't have any plan for the economic, the societal, the governmental restoration of a new government under their ideology. So that's why they said that they'd just let the Soviets or the Cubans or the Chinese come in. Now, I agree with your point that Ayers himself was never this big anti-establishment figure, which is why, in fact, he was hired and he became part of the political elite when he became an Illinois professor and this big educational establishment figure in America. So the elite certainly used Ayers for their own ends and to create this big idea of the Reds under the bed, which led to a lot of Americans giving up their rights and indeed was the start of this military-industrial complex movement in the 50s. Now, as I stated earlier in the show, I'm not saying that Ayers or the Weather Underground even plausibly would have been able to cause the collapse of America, which would lead to this communist invasion. I'm saying that that was their ideology, and the fact that Chris Matthews defends it while attacking grassroots Americans as political extremists is the height of hypocrisy. So it's not a question of whether Bill Ayers or the communist left-wingers at the time really intended to or had a chance of bringing in this communist revolution. It's the fact that Chris Matthews now gives them softball questions and basically doesn't even grill them on the fact